Okay, we're going to get started. It is about it is a little after 2:30. I know there's still some people just coming in, but I want to be able to give our presenters as much time as possible to go through their workshop. The session that you are in is Making New Friends, How to Achieve Better Outreach for Your Library. And I'm going to do the bios for each of our presenters. Because of how they're listed, I'm just sort of doing the ABC alphabetical order as it appears in the program because it's easier to read it that way. Um, Alessandra Otero-Ramos is the Arts and Humanities Librarian at SUNY Geneseo. She is the chair and founder of the school's Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism IDEA Committee or IDEA Committee, and is also the co-chair of the Library Social Media Committee. Her research interests include library instruction, arts and humanities librarianship, library outreach, visual literacy, emotional intelligence, and marketing and promotion in libraries. Amanda Lowe is the outreach and marketing librarian at University at Albany. She has an MLS from the University at Buffalo and a BS in English from SUNY Oneonta, excuse me. Her research focuses on library marketing and outreach with a concentration on social media, reference services, and library programming. Fatoma Rad is the acquisitions librarian at Farmingdale State College. She oversees the library liaison program, is the head of the collection development committee, and manages the library's social media accounts. Prior to Farmingdale State College, she was a special projects librarian at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center's medical library. She earned her her MS-LIS from Pratt Institute, and her MA in Higher Education Administration from Stony Brook University. Excuse me. Megan Benson, scrolling quickly. Sorry, my computer decided to freeze up. I apologize. Megan Benson is the lead instruction and outreach librarian at Binghamton University, where she manages the at BingU Libraries account. She also has a master's degree in history from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Prior to becoming a librarian, Megan taught Western Civilizations 1 at 2 at Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. And our last presenter today is Sarah Rhodes. Sarah is the Reference and Instruction Senior Assistant Librarian at SUNY Oneonta. She is the chair of the library's sustainability team and a member of the college's Presidential Advisory Council on Sustainability. Sarah is a liaison for the Geography and Environmental Sustainability Department and all three education departments. And now I will turn it over to our presenters for today.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And today our learning outcomes are to learn and explore new strategies in social media outreach for your library. And we will examine current social media outreach problems and potential obstacles. And we do encourage you to participate in the chat, throw out resources, questions, and have a ball in there.
Hi, everybody. Now you can hear me, I bet. In this lead guide, we gather information about each institution's social media presence. So you will find access to resources such as policies and guidelines. As well, you will find the links to each platform that each institution uses to promote their services. We also have a second component, which is the other resources tab, in which we include this presentation and also the marvelous resources, tools, and guide that Amanda created for us. We have compiled a list of resources that will help you start with your social media presence.
All right, and I will be throwing a link in the chat for a Google Jamboard to ask you guys the question on the first slide. What are your concerns about social media? And so if on the side, you'll see that there's an arrow or like a circle around an arrow, but right beneath that is like a Post-it note or a sticky note. You can pick the color that you want to have, and then you can type in what your concerns are. All right, so we've got some folks in there. On-campus guidelines, sure, we're going to talk about that later today. The amount of time needed to keep up with it. Not enough folks looking at it to make it worth it, not picking the right platform, sure. Consistency of posting, time to create, post and maintain. These are all wonderful, like awesome concerns to have. And I hope that we will address a lot of them in our presentation today. No clear goals, accessibility. Dealing with negative comments, sure. How to reach the target audience, yep. I don't get TikTok, I'm with you. I don't get TikTok myself. These are really great. Thank you so much for sharing.
So thanks for sharing what your concerns over social media are. As we progress through the workshop, we hope that we'll cover or address most of what you've shared. So to begin, we'll start with getting started, no pun intended. We'll take a few moments over the next few slides to talk about the topics of social media platforms, creating content, branding policies, and finding your audience. Next slide.
So before you really get into things, you need to pick what platforms you want to be on. There's a lot of choices. Someone mentioned TikTok. What's the deal with that? A lot of us don't know what's going on with it. If it's a platform that we want to engage on, a lot of us tend to stick to the big three right now, which are Twitter, Facebook, it's petering out with use, and Instagram, which is a huge one, especially for undergraduate populations. So when you're looking to pick the platform that you want to be on, your main concern would be, who do you want to reach? Who are the people that are engaging on these platforms? So you want to look at what age ranges are engaging most on the platforms. A lot of us are dealing with undergrads, so we want to look at their age range, maybe some non-traditional students, so looking at a little bit older. Another thing you want to look at is, do you want to be more visual? Do you want to be more text oriented? Twitter is a more text oriented platform, so is Facebook. And on Instagram and TikTok, you have more opportunities to use different kind of visuals or multimedia. So you can make your short videos, you can make long form videos, and of course, pictures. So there's a lot out there. You have to do your research, what's going to work well for what your needs are. But before you go any further, after you've picked the platforms you're going to use, you're going to want to know, before you start creating content, what is your university's or college's communication policy or branding guide? Do they have one? And I'll show you an example of Albany's, because it is robust. It is about 56 pages long. So there's a lot in here. And they lay down how you can use the logo, how you can refer to the university. And if you're doing any kind of creating, not just social media, you should really pay attention to any policies that your campus has. So go and find their guide, talk to who's ever in your communication media department on campus to make sure that anything that you're going to create in the future is going to fall within the guidelines of what is acceptable for the university, because you don't want to get dinged one day when you post something and say, here at the University of Albany, calling the university UA. There's only specific instances here that we can refer to the university as UA, and those are branded athletic things like UA, and that kind of thing. So you want to make sure you don't get in trouble when you start creating. So creating content, right? You want to create a brand, and we're all going to kind of talk about what our brand is on campus and how we went about making those choices. I'll kind of start out talking about what we do here at UAlbany. Each one of our accounts has kind of a slightly different brand, though we try to stick to the same colors and the same logos and all that stuff. So we have a package Of course, this is taken right from the university's stuff, so we're using the hex keys and stuff for the university's colors. Do you want to have fun? Do you want a balance of things? Our Twitter account's theme is scholarly, not scary. So we want to have fun with our community, and that's kind of the tone that we've set with our folks over at Twitter. Very similar on Instagram, and on Facebook, we tend to be a little bit more serious and just share what's going on. So it's kind of where we are at for our branding and the tone for our accounts. I'll let one of my other colleagues share.
So I jump here. So in Fraser Hall Library in SUNY Geneseo, we have like a mix. We balance the tone between being fun and being serious. Like, for example, throughout the semester, we tend to promote what is the services and the resources that are relevant for the students to success in their research assignment. But like, for example, now in summer, like, we would like to promote like a more funny, relaxed feel. So we pop up questions such as, what is your favorite summer treat? Is it ice cream or is it popsicle? So we balance those that feel throughout the year, depending of what the audience needs and what we think, depending on what we think the audience will need. All right. Another thing that you want to consider when creating content, it is like you want to brainstorm idea about what kind of content you want to promote in your library social media, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do besides library services and library resources as well. For example, we also promote a publication from the library staff, so the community learn what is it that a librarian do as well. Like, librarians not only are in the library sorting books, you know, we do publications, we do outreach as well. You could also use your social media to create awareness and to create connections with your audience in ways that are more human. For example, during the summer, we also launched the idea of doing the library pet of the week. So each library staff will submit a picture of the pet, a short bio of the pet, and we would highlight that in our social media as well. So you could be creative as well, and you could balance the feel of your social media presence.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that branding can also extend beyond the type of content to also the style of content. So are your colors bold and bright? Are they dark? Are they soft? And you use lots of whites and pastels. So your social media accounts will start to develop a certain look, and followers will respond to that. So for instance, most of ours at my college tend to be a bit bolder. Our college colors are red and black, so everything is very kind of intense sometimes. And our softer posts don't generally generate as much traffic. A lot of our bold colored posts do a lot better. So it's important, if you're sharing photos as well, to know what your photo policy is on campus. So our students sign a waiver when they start on campus so that their photographs can be used without additional signatures. So we don't have to worry about if we're taking pictures at events or taking pictures of students in the library, going around and making sure they're okay with that before we post it. We have that blanket policy on campus. So that's something to pay attention to as well when you're looking at creating content. And next slide, if everyone's done.
So there was mention of a guide that was created. It's in the live guide that was the link that was shared. Here, I just wanted to talk quickly about a couple different tools that folks here in this presentation use. Creation platforms, we recommend Canva and Adobe Spark. Both of them have free versions that are pretty intuitive to use, though if you do pay for Pro, especially for Canva, I think it's worth it. You get a lot more. You can input your branding colors, logos, you get more fonts. And I think I pay like $14 a month maybe, and you can like pick a yearly subscription if you want. And I use it personally as well outside of work. So it's a great platform just all the way around. Adobe Spark, if you want to make kind of like short little videos, you do have a watermark from Adobe Spark since you are using a free version, but if you upgrade, obviously that will go away. In terms of finding some stock photos, Pixabay, Unsplash, both a bunch of free, royalty-free images are there. They have their licensing information, and I believe I linked to that in this really, it's 10 pages. So definitely, comb through here. I've linked everything and gave you a little more info about what you can find at those sites, as well as let you know what's purchase only, some freemium options, and things that are completely free. If you have any questions about these as you go through it at a later time, feel free to email, I think, me or anyone here to chat about what we've used and what we would recommend. But everything in here, as well as some general knowledge and inspirational accounts, as well as a giant directory. If you didn't know that there was a directory of social media or academic libraries, there is, and it's huge. And if your library is not on there, you can contact someone to have you yourself add it. So that's my plug for that. Let me go back over here. So lots of different creation tools that are free that you can get to, or freemium options.
So I think all librarians definitely appreciate hashtags. It's just a matter of getting used to them and figuring out how they work. Hashtags help you organize your posts. You'll see them, they're really popular with like events, programs, a lot of conferences now use them. You can also see what other people have posted using the same hashtag. So if you're definitely stuck on what content to create, we have a list of hashtags here. Search for some. You can follow hashtags on Instagram as well, so they'll pop up in your feed. It'll help you stay current and be up to date on what's going on. You can also create your own hashtags, which is great, and make them specific to your library. So it can be your campus, your library hashtag itself. For us, I think a few people on our campus follow our library hashtag, which makes it easier for them to just find everything. Megan popped in our SUNYLA hashtag, definitely use those. And then when you're creating hashtags, try not to throw in too many, and remember that your account needs to be public in order for it to be found by everyone and to be searchable. There are limitations on how long they should be. I wouldn't make them too long or too stretched out. You kind of want them to be a little easy and be able to catch them. And if you do want to make your own hashtag, the one disclaimer I have is do a deep dive of the hashtag you're looking for to make sure that your library isn't associated with something not very library appropriate or institution appropriate. Sometimes it may sound like a great idea and someone else may have grabbed it and it may not be what you want. So definitely take that time out to search it on your own, go into Cognito, do all of that. And then if you're creating specific hashtags, so for us, we're big on our campus archives. So we have FSC Throwback Thursday that helps us organize all of our posts. And it's great for like annual reports or reviews, or if you want to send them out to certain people on campus as well.
So a really important thing going forward with your accounts is knowing who your audience is, or if you're just starting out, finding who you want your audience to be. So some of the things that you can do are create a persona, and I'm going to let Fatoma talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our Twitter and Instagram accounts are two different people. Our Twitter is definitely really good friends with our faculty and our alumni services and other library organizations on Long Island, actually. We use it to follow conferences. We use it to stay up to date with any of our librarians, or even if any faculty we get picked up on that are presenting, we'll retweet. We use it for scholarly and sometimes just like back and forth fun with other libraries. Our students are not big on Twitter, which is why we don't really cater to them. Our Instagram is just like a college kid. We try to throw information in there that's relevant to them, but it's definitely more visual. We also know that our students like pictures with faces on them. So if there's a student employee on there or a staff or a clerk, that's going to get a lot more hits. we try to promote what our students do on campus. So if they tag us, there's certain clubs that we work with. They know that if they tag us, they'll get the bump up, and that gets them really excited. So it's very much a college kid who's looking for likes and will do reposts and will be your friend. And those are our two personas. Our Facebook is just there. And I wish I had something better to say, but it was just there when I came here, and it's kind of just been there still. And I think my director hops on there sometimes to like repost something, but I guess it's just like the forgotten child, unfortunately. So
not
that's our
to poo-poo
Facebook.
on Facebook. People
That's
are still
just how it
using
is on, yeah, unfortunately that's what happened with ours, but for us, it's just not working.
Yeah, it's so once you identify who your audiences are on all of these platforms or who you want them to be, that gauges how you want to do your content. So are you creating more events and more things geared towards scholarly communications because you have more faculty or alumni or graduate students on one platform than the other? If you are engaging undergraduate students, you want to be more visual with them because that's what they respond to, that's what they engage with. So once you identify who your audience is, you can really steer your content on that platform. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, at SUNY Oneonta, we use Facebook for faculty and Instagram for students, as that is typically who's following us on those accounts. So like our campus is also really big on Instagram with our students. They use it personally and they use it for their clubs the most. Their clubs aren't on Facebook. Our faculty center has a Facebook group, so we can usually get them to share our posts into their group and get even better coverage for a post. So we kind of tend to orient our social media accounts that way: Facebook faculty and Instagram for students. And we tend to keep our Facebook more informative and highlight things that the faculty are interested in. And then our student page is more light and silly. And we try to highlight students on our Instagram as they respond well to seeing their peers. So we'll highlight our student workers, or if a student has done work utilizing library resources from our archives or something, we'll make posts about that as well.
All right, so I think it's important to have some policies and some guidelines, and thinking about what your workflows might be. So that's going to be discussed in a couple slides, and how many folks are going to be a part of your team. But also, again, what kind of content are you posting on each platform? Where is your guide going to live? Like, who has access to it? So I've shared the guidelines from Binghamton, but it lives on an internal on our intranet. And so it's not publicly available typically. And then the other thing to consider when making a social media policy or a guideline is to think about the best practices. So, and I update this whenever I see that things have been updated. I try to do it annually, but sometimes I'll see some updates on like pixel sizes or word count, best practices on how to use inclusive language, and I'll update the guideline to include those updates. For example, I updated the word count for each of the big 3 social media platforms, like probably 3 months ago, based on some new data that had come out. So even though you can have the max of like 280 words on Twitter, that might not be the most like the best practice word count. So that's what my guide includes. It is included on the LibGuide if you want to take a look. And I think it also helps identify things like, what do you do if there's a negative comment? What's the protocol for that? Do you send it up the chain? Do you ignore it? I think it depends a little bit on the situation and what they're commenting about, but at least there's a guideline there. And there's also, you can identify backup. So if I were to take a vacation, who's going to be in charge, or who's going to be the person to reach out to? And it's on paper and folks can figure that out. And it's not just like a dumpster fire.
Yes, just make a mention, a policy is important to define the method of action that to manage your social media, and it will help you determine present and future decisions. For example, how you're going to manage negative comments in your post. Is it going to, does the social media team or person will have the right to address that issue directly with the person or to erase that comment? Or should it be discussed with your library director or addressed through the Department of Communication of your institution? So those things need to be, to think through about, to think about that when talking about your social media policies. Another thing is how many members will be involved in the social media management of your institution? Like, is it going to be a solo thing, or is going to be a team that is working on with the social media in your library? Who will be posting content or generating content? Not necessarily the person that generates the content is the one that will be posting the content in your social media, especially when you're talking about a social media committee or team. So for example, in our library, there's a social media committee, and each of us have in charge a platform. I'm in charge of the Instagram account, another person is in charge of the Twitter account. We meet to create the content, to generate the ideas for what is it that we are gonna be publishing in the social media. But we put our own perspective on how that content will be addressed in the platform that we have. All right, so now it's time for group discussions. And throughout this presentation, we have 3 breakout sessions, and they will be focusing on brainstorming about how your library can use the social media for outreach. So in this first breakout, you're going to be using the worksheet that Sarah shared the link earlier in the chat for that worksheet. So you will be using that as a guideline. In this background-specific breakout session specifically, you're going to be focusing on session 1 and 2 of that worksheet. And we are going to be you're going to be thinking about your social media policies. So I have a question: who will create the breakout room?
Yeah, that's what I don't know if I have to stop sharing my screen to do that.
Okay, and let me see if I can do it. So wait.
Might be me. I think
Yeah, I'm not.
All right. I'm going to, let's see, there are 48 of us here. I'm going to create, three rooms sound good? That's 15 to 16 participants. Maybe like 4, make it a little smaller. Okay.
Amanda, do you want us to pop over, or do you want us to just hang out here?
We could probably just hang out here.
Okay.
Want me to set a timer for the breakout rooms so we know when to end it, or is it already automatic?
I'm sending them a message that says 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. And I think it's 3 o'clock now, so that's like perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. As soon as we said breakout rooms, I think we lost a bunch of people.
I know.
That always happens. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it happens to me. Like, I'm like, I don't want to interact. I'll just like leave.
I understand it, but then it's also like, oh man.
Yeah. At one point, my husband came down because he didn't realize I had started my presentation already, and he's like talking to me, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of a presentation, and he's just like, oh, sorry. Now I'm curious, is that going to be on the recording?
Probably.
Oh well. No,
I have to
everyone
turn my camera off when I present, because I also talk with my hands, and like it always looks like I'm about to punch the camera, but it's just my hands, man. I can't control them when I speak.
Yeah,
I
me
do the
neither.
same.
And I'm like, no, the camera needs to be off. Because I remember I saw a recording like the first time I presented online, and I was like, oh my God, it's just hands flying. I can't have this anymore.
My friends always say that my hands don't make any sense to what I'm saying, because I'll be like, it was tiny. And, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. They just have to move. It's an expression of my body.
Alessandra, I always appreciate your plants. I'm not a plant person, but yours always look so nice and thriving. I'm like, it's an aspirational level of plants that I would like to try to achieve.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's because I cannot see myself when I talk, but it's okay.
Erin, for you that just joined us, we're in a breakout little group thing for a couple minutes. So if you're wondering why there's only 5 of us in here, it's just because we sent everyone to breakout rooms.
Hey, I'm sorry, I got a phone call because the college president just told us we're closing early tomorrow, and I had to arrange all my staff and miss this meeting start, and the usual.
Yeah.
I can assign you to a room for the next like 2 minutes if you want to pop in and just see what people are talking about.
I'm okay with waiting for 2 minutes. That's
All
fine.
right.
I saw you pop in and I was just like, she's gonna wonder what we're doing.
I've been going to SUNYLA for 12 years now. Nothing surprises me anymore.
But yeah, Alessandra, your background was just is very envious to me. It's just so lovely and peaceful looking. And every time you're like on the screen, I'm like, oh, that looks so lovely to sit in.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my creative space, well, it's been my working space as well for 1.5 years now, but
Yeah, and maybe not ironically working in my house's library. We have like a whole bunch of bookshelves over there, and there's a fireplace behind me, so it's very like old school library-esque, so it's kind of nice.
Kathy, if you're wondering what we're doing, we're having breakout rooms right now. They're about ready to come back in like a minute, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Late to the party here.
All right.
It's fine, we're happy to have you. I think Megan went and hung out in the breakout room. She's probably leading the charge.
All right, we're at 3:05. Should I bring them back?
I'd say so.
Okay. They get a minute. So.
That minute countdown can get really anxiety inducing sometimes.
Especially if you're in the middle of a good conversation. I always hate to like break up good conversations.
I know, I feel like you can always hear people start talking really fast. They're like, oh, I gotta get this in.
I figured out how to do this. This is the first time I did breakout rooms myself. So
oh, impressive.
You did it flawlessly.
Yes. I'm impressed now. I mean, I was impressed before, but now I'm super impressed.
And she did that while like casting the PowerPoint.
Exactly. That's
Superhuman skills right here.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. If you were having good conversations, there'll be, again, 2 more opportunities to have further conversations about things. And we encourage folks to continue conversations even after this workshop. So, okay.
So yes, thank you all for participating in the breakout rooms. We hope it was fun. We're going to move on to workflows, and we're going to go through different workflows based on our experiences at our own institutions. Next slide. So we're going to hop back over to Jamboard. If you click on the same link as below, as Amanda just showed on the top, and you just click on the next arrow, we just want to hear from you all, and we want to know, where are you currently at with your social media? Megan just popped it in the chat in as well, and Sarah. So we have 1 response so far. Not really allowed by marketing to do anything with social media. That's a tough situation.
Hopefully you'll have one after this, or consider making one after this. So
Yes. Still figuring it out.
Renegades, I like that.
I like the renegades. That's how ours started.
Feeling uninspired. I can understand that. That's, especially this past year, it's kind of hard. And I'm sure at some point during this presentation, I think each of us can talk about how we handled the pandemic year with social media.
We have one library that has a social media team, so that's good. Hoping the work pays off. Yes, I feel that one.
What social media?
I saw that appear and disappear. No, there we go.
Yeah, disjointed. Again, that all stems from, I think, what the workflows can be and who's in charge, and we're going to get into that.
The feels like no one is engaging. It's mostly faculty, staff, retirees. We're gonna talk about that briefly as well.
Oh yes, we have Facebook, Twitter, but no one knows who has access and who is allowed to post. That is definitely tough. Something that I know I've run into in terms of when people retire, who is going to pass along the information. All that stuff, that succession planning almost for your social accounts.
That's something, that information, like the passwords and the login information, it's not exactly in the actual social media policy, but it is on our intranet in like a space where that would fit well. So so folks have access to it if I wasn't unavailable for whatever reason. So if you have like an intranet or an internal place, that might be a good place to put that information so you can avoid that.
I see someone said they jumped from 40 to 1040 in Instagram followers, and they have good engagement, which is great. And you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed. We're going to address burnout at the end of this, so hang tight for our suggestions on that. All right, thank you for all these wonderful comments. We're going to continue on.
All right, so I can start us off here. So having a team help with social media in your library can be really beneficial, but it can also present some logistical issues that need figuring out. So for example, at SUNYLA, we have a dedicated team for marketing and outreach, but members can cycle on and off yearly. So with that knowledge, we need to think about how will accounts be maintained as people cycle on and off teams? So where are those passwords being stored? Will passwords change every time members leave? Like, do we want them to have access to accounts when they're not on the team? Do members have social media accounts in the platform the library is using? So is each team member assigned a role, or are you all sharing responsibilities for posting and generating content? So there's a lot of different ways you can set up teams, and you just make them work for your library. We have, I will do a lot of the content generating and posting, but we also have members on our team who go through and engage, and their main primary role on the team is to engage with other posts and like other posts and find other things for our library account to engage with. So there's a lot of different ways that you can set up teams, and they're super helpful. Amanda or Alessandra, did you want to talk some more on teams?
Sure, definitely. We also have a team in Virtual Hall Library. There's a committee of 4 people. And one of the things we've been figuring out also, it is like who will have access to the username and password of the account. Is it going to be one person, or everybody's going to have access to that information? Another thing to take into consideration is when you are in a team, there are team responsibilities, but also members' responsibility as well. And depending on the position in the committee, is going to be the responsibility of the member. For example, the co-chairs of the committee are in charge also to coordinate the meetings for the social media committee and to review the policies and that kind of things, while all the members should be generating ideas for content and creating graphics and posting the information in the social media account as well. So, yeah.
I have kind of like a hybrid situation. So I chair our marketing coordinating committee, which has kind of like marketing stakeholders throughout the 3 libraries that we have. And they'll bring content from different areas that needs to go up, or make the people in their libraries aware of what's going on. And then myself and Tyler Norton from our dean's office create all our content, and I oversee our social media accounts as things go up. So there is different ways that teams can work, and different ways you can get information from stakeholders, which I think the folks that work completely solo are probably going to address some of that stuff as well. But yeah, you want to make sure that if you're in a team or you're working independently, that where are you getting your information for what needs to go up across the libraries? Who are your stakeholders? How do you get information from them for creating this content that you're putting up?
All right, so you might be a little bit like me. I am mostly alone. I don't want to say that I'm the only person who does social media on my campus. There are folks who help out, but generally speaking, I'm the one who plans things and kind of puts things together. I do have a colleague who has been on campus more than I have been, and they will post new books that we get in onto our Instagram account, which has been fabulous, and I'm very appreciative of that. But it is important to think about how you're going to generate content and how you're going to get information from other people. So I use a Google form, and folks fill out the form when they need it. Hopefully like 2 weeks in advance. It doesn't always happen that way, but ideally that's what will happen. And I have I've given an example of the form that I use in the LibGuide as a PDF, so that you can check out some of the questions that I ask and some suggestions that I have for folks. So I actually ask for specific, what do you want to say on Twitter? Word count is suggested to be this, or what do you want on Instagram, and things like that. And which hashtags do you want to use if you know you want to use a hashtag. A social media scheduler might be really helpful for folks who are going at it alone. I personally use Hootsuite. I know that in library land, there's been some discussion of moving away from Hootsuite to something like Buffer or Sprout Social, or another one of those tools that I think is probably mentioned in the fabulous resource guide that Amanda created. And then knowing if you have a backup or not. And if you don't have a backup, are your admins okay if something doesn't get posted if you're not available? And having that understanding ahead of time can alleviate some of the stress. Fatoma or Amanda, do you want to chime in?
Sure. So mine is pretty similar to Megan's role. It's me. I oversee things, and I do have colleagues who pass along ideas. So it can be overwhelming to do all of it. So what I will try to do is throw out ideas if there's like an Instagram campaign for colleagues to just submit material and content. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. I do not use the scheduler. If for Twitter, it's more about events that's happening. But for Instagram, I actually go off of what's happening on campus as well as book displays. So I'm in charge of the book displays, and that I do have a calendar for. So since that coincides, it makes it a little easier for scheduling and knowing what to schedule. I work with a few departments on campus, and we usually do DMs of what to post, what to share. I only do this with about 3 or 4 because 2 of them are, they're run by staff members on campus, and then the other 2 are student clubs that are directly overseen by student activities. So that's definitely a gray area. You should be mindful just to not get too messy online with that. I don't always repost what students ask. You'll notice the more you do work with students, you will get things like that. That's where your social media policies will be really helpful. Internally, colleagues will forward me ideas of things that they find online, and they'll be like, hey, our Instagram should do this, or we should try that. To that, I've just gotten better about putting up boundaries. So if it's something I have the space for, I will, or I'll say, hey, this is a great idea. Do you want to take the lead on it? Do you want to give me the content? So that kind of will answer if it gets done or not. I work with one of our librarians who does a lot of archives work. And for that, when she wants content, it has to be very specific. So she has to label the photos, the captions, and the dates she wants them out. And I need all of those in at least 2 weeks before the posting starts. That's only to help myself and for her to be organized. So I would definitely have deadlines if you are going to work with others to make sure that things go out at a right time. Since it's only me, my account passwords are definitely shared with the director and docs online. But if I'm out, things will not get posted. And it's just kind of, in the past, I would kind of log in, and then now I just kind of have like a hard no that I can't do that anymore. So definitely make sure your passwords are there and let people know that if they want to reach out, they can, but have those guidelines and your boundaries for yourself. So that way you're not really getting overwhelmed. I also have, well, I guess it's a good thing. I was never outreach or social media librarian. I'm head of collection development. This kind of just fell. So this is really not part of my duties at all. So I have a little more leeway to say, hey, if I'm out, it's really not even my fault if it's posted or not.
I'll just jump in at the end to say, since I am outreach and marketing librarian, these are very much a part of my duties. I see some people discussing what their duties are and what they include. I am part of the reference team, but this is like half of what I do. So in terms of us gathering things, like I said, it's from a marketing coordinating committee, and then we kind of have different teams around certain things like our Skullcom team, people that do different events like our campus conversations team, and they'll give us content and we'll generate the social posts for those things. In terms of a scheduler, Canva, if you're paying for Pro, just developed this wonderful kind of like a content organizer. So it doesn't necessarily post for you, but you can create in Canva and then kind of schedule out where you want to make the posts, but you have to go and then put the posts up manually. We do use TweetDeck. That's fantastic for Twitter, and it's free. So you can't beat free. But if you're looking for something that can host multiple platforms that you might be on, something like Buffer or Hootsuite would be something to do. The only downside is you do have to find a way to pay for these things, because the free versions, depending on how many accounts you have, we have a lot of accounts here at UAlbany, might not cut it.
I can start us off on this slide. So collaborating across campus can be a great way to extend your reach and get your account seen by a new group of people. Sometimes your campus may have a formal or informal group of account managers. So at my campus, we have a group called SMUG, which means Social Media Users Group. where the larger accounts, so like athletics and residential life, the library, the main campus, etc., they all meet and discuss things that are happening on campus and asking for assistance promoting different events. One thing that you'll want to think about when collaborating across campus is how are you promoting non-library events? We like to keep our accounts library themed. So for example, the SUNY mascot challenge that was happening, we helped promote that with pictures of a plush mascot throughout the library. So we were promoting the mascot challenge, but we made it library themed. So I think besides the obvious benefits of collaborating, it also helps you be more creative and think outside the box of your traditional library posts. But there are things that you're going to want to kind of take into consideration, like do you have the contact information for who's managing them and who do you want to work with on campus?
So collaborations have been kind of the saving grace for our accounts, especially the past few years. I relied really heavily on our student clubs, our student activities, student SGA. They're the ones who that's where they find our information actually. Sometimes they DM us and they're like, oh, we didn't know you guys were open on this day. Definitely be mindful of DMs. You will have to block some, and you also need something written saying that you will not always respond to them. You don't want them to think that it's like an automatic chat or an automatic reference system. I don't list the hours that I respond to DMs or anything. It's just there. We either do or we don't respond. Because the student clubs that we've collaborated with created book displays or events, or they just like the research guides, I let them use screenshots of our library page and they post it, and then I'll repost, or they'll repost our post. It gets a way of talking, and then that's also a way for us to try to get more information about the library to them. So rely on them if you have a good connection. We also used our student employees. They would get a lot more likes. They like to see their face on Instagram and they'll repost. That's kind of how it works. They were the ones who would always create our recreative photos. So they would find a photo from the archives and they would try to recreate it, because our campus has not really changed too much. They would have fun with that, and then they would be able to share it. Our campus itself has a very weak social media presence. So the library and student activities and one of the advising groups are actually more active online than our campus social media accounts. Our official athletics account is not used, but the students themselves have their own ones, so those are used more. So I definitely lean on those accounts more than the official ones. Our campus also does not have an official ruling for social media as well. So the comment in the Jamboard where you're just a renegade, that's kind of what happened to ours as well. I first met Amanda at SUNYLA and I was like, I'm just going to create it. And my director was like, let's just create it and see what happens. And no one said anything. In fact, our campus liked it and they're like, these are really cool. So we were free and we just kept going. So definitely try to see what the tone is on your campus and then play off of it from there.
We have a very robust social media presence across campus, to the point where a group of campus social media managers in different offices was created so we can suss out what was happening between all the different clubs that create accounts, what's an official account, what's not, and have some continuity across social media accounts. And we call this group of social media managers the socialites. I don't know why that's what they chose, but it's been very helpful because now I'm connected to all the big accounts on campus, like the alumni account, the overall UAlbany account, and we can collaborate with each other. We can create a policy for the campus, because right now the policy that's in place isn't the greatest, and we kind of wanted to revamp it. And we've also talked about creating a social media hub to where there's a list of all the active accounts across the campus, including the libraries, so you can see which ones students may want to follow, because there are a lot of dead accounts, and that happens when there's not good succession planning between who's going to take it over and who's not. And that's why it's important for us in the libraries to also decide if I were to leave tomorrow, is there documentation for the person that follows, right? So that's something to consider. But I just want to echo what everyone else has said. There are a lot of opportunities for collaboration with clubs, people that you're already talking to host events. And there are some features, if you're using Facebook still, there is cross-posting that you can enable in that account to do cross-posting with different organizations across campus that you might interact with. I know that we have dissertation hours that we do with the graduate school. We have librarians that do that with them, and they can cross-post events over to us on our page because we have it set up to have that relationship with them. So things to consider. If there's cross-posting, you might want to enable it. Again, when you're on Twitter, just looking at what you're being tagged in, do you want to retweet it, or is it something that we have a gentleman that tags us in just about everything, and he's an alumni, and a lot of times we acknowledge it, like we'll like it, but we won't repost it, right? Because it's not something that's for the mission of our account. So these things you want to consider when you're looking through things. So engaging, we kind of touched on this. You kind of want to decide based on the policies that you have in place, how you want to respond when people make mention of you, or if they're, say that there's something that happens in your building. And I can give kind of an example of something not too great that happened in our building. We had someone do something lewd in the building. Somebody captured it on a Snapchat, and we're sharing it around Twitter. And we were mentioned a bunch, and we chose to ignore it because we didn't want to be involved. The police were handling what happened, and there was no need for us to get dragged into the comments for this. So we just chose to remain silent on that. So when you have things like this happen, are you going to comment on it? Do you need to comment on it? Those are decisions you have to make. And if you have policies in place, that will help inform what you're going to do. What accounts are you going to follow? We try not to follow everybody because we think that's creepy, especially with student accounts. Do they really want us following them and seeing like what they're doing on a drunken night with friends? Probably not. So we tend to only follow verified university account, and then select professors that engage with us a lot. We'll follow them as well as inspirational or aspirational libraries or other accounts that we want to see what they're doing, so we'll follow them. And that's just how we operate. I kind of gauge students when we have a student advisory board meetings. I'm like, would you be weirded out if the library started following you? And they absolutely agree that that would be weird. And again, the whole negative post things, refer back to your policies.
Yeah, I'll just echo kind of what Amanda said. We also have a policy at SUNYLA that we don't follow student accounts for privacy purposes. We don't want to see what they're doing on the weekend. And so we pretty much only follow club accounts and faculty accounts to interact with them. We try to make sure we always engage with accounts that have tagged us, and the type of engagement will vary depending on the account that has tagged us and how they've tagged us. So if a student posts a bunch of graduation pictures and one happens to be in front of the library, we'll always like it, unless it's lewd. And then sometimes commenting things like congratulations. But it's important to remember what you're scheduling too, and when you're scheduling things, especially if you use an automatic scheduler, because you may have people suddenly interact with a post that you weren't expecting. So we collaborated with Student Association and hosted these giveaway shamrock kits for St. Patty's Day. And all of a sudden it kind of blew up on us a little bit. And we had several students commenting and messaging like that count at all hours, asking when the library was open so they could come and pick one up. So we needed to be able to respond to those in a timely fashion. So when you're engaging with accounts, you just have to kind of be mindful of things like that.
I think Amanda and Sarah have said anything I was going to say. And I think in the interest of time, we might want to move on to the next breakout room.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have another breakout, and this time we'll be talking about collaboration, so brainstorming who you might collaborate with. And on the worksheet that we've shared, it'll be section 3.
And again, that'll probably be like 3-5 minutes just for the sake of time. So we might pull you back a little earlier. We might not get to the 3rd breakout, but I don't think that's the end of the world if we don't get to it.
Yeah, I'm looking, we only have about a dozen slides left.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think maybe at the next Jamboard, keep it on the shorter side too, if we want to.
I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute and it was just like, what is happening?
I don't know whose kitty is making meowing noises in the background.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
My kitty, and I have birds. I need to keep myself mute because I have birds in the windows that they are making a lot of noise. So I'm like, oh my God.
Are they like wild birds or pet
Wild
birds?
birds.
Yeah.
Wild birds. Yeah. And I didn't know they make so much noise. So especially today, you know.
That was why I came to the office, because I feel like anytime I have to teach or present, every single one of my neighbors mows their lawn at the same time. And like every child is screaming, apparently right by my window. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I was like, no, this is my off week, but I'm supposed to be in work from home. But I was like, no, I need to go in. Like, I don't want this to be in the background.
I was in the personnel policy SIG meeting for a couple minutes yesterday, and my colleague Heather was kind of leading that, and she accidentally stepped on her kitten's paw. And like all of a sudden it just made this like crazy noise, and then she was like, oh my God, and started freaking out, and we were all just like, what is happening over there? And then she's like, I stepped on my kitten's paw. And we were like, oh. Should we give everyone like a maybe 1 minute warning, Amanda?
Yeah. Well, they have 1 minute once I close the room, so
Okay.
I'll give it a start wrapping up.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening in a group conversation I'm a part of, but one of my friends just went, yeah, calm down, Jenna, and drink some chicken stock. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm missing in this conversation.
When did we start this?
I don't know. At 3:31, I think.
I'm going to bring them back since they have a minute. Hopefully they will want to continue the conversation over in the hub.
Yeah.
Again, I hate breaking up good conversation.
I keep forgetting to check out the hub.
Not a lot of people I feel have been over there. I think I did promote it on our social account. So
we told Logan they should name it something really cheesy with like the seeds to the stuff, or like the farm, or like something like that. And then he had a lot of funny jokes to make to that, which I won't share.
Okay, welcome back. I hope everyone had some good conversation again. Continue that conversation over at the hub. There's a space for that.
All right, so we hope you enjoyed that last breakout. Now we're going to talk about what happens when you've created your account and have started posting. So we'll discuss social listening, analytics, and burnout. Next slide. Oops, that's me still. Sorry. So we're going to head on over to our final Jamboard of the day. So on the third slide, answer the question, who are possible collaborators? So hopefully you have some ideas from your discussion that you just had.
President's dog. I love that. I now need to follow this. I'm assuming the dog's name is Tilly.
Tilly is a Springer Spaniel and has her own Twitter account.
That's great. I'm going to go and follow.
We've got student clubs. I was talking about that in my breakout room, that's not an opportunity that I would like to take.
Yeah.
The Honors College, liaison departments, absolutely. I follow a lot of the liaison departments on Twitter and Facebook. That's where a lot of them are for me.
First year experience, big one. I don't know if anyone's going to say it, but transfer students as well. They have a group. I know we have one on campus. College marketing. Alumni, of course. That's good for the Throwback Thursday stuff. They have things at home, like asking people like share their photos.
Yeah, our alumni are really large on our campus, or at our campus, like they are very active. So if you have a really large active alumni, that's a great collaboration.
Blackstone Launchpad, we also have one of those, but I didn't think about collaborating with them, but now I might.
Local ethnic and affinity groups, especially nonprofits, yeah. Other local places like public libraries. We have actually collaborated with our public library on posts in the past.
Someone said they think they need to do an inventory of who is on social media. Yeah, of course. Figure out who's doing it on campus and then team up. Also, don't be shy to start friendly competitions with other libraries. I know it's something that Megan and I have talked about. I just haven't made it happen yet, but we're going to challenge Binghamton to something. Like, when those things come through, like the mannequin challenges and stuff like that, you can do a fun little chain of other libraries and like really get into it.
There's a couple international libraries that I follow because they do stuff like that, and it's just so much fun. They tend to be British, and so there's this one. It's I guess it's not British. They're Scottish, and it's a public library, and they have like these giant, like circular balls of concrete outside their library, and then they I don't know. It's just so much fun, and they tag other libraries. So I think I would never tag this public library in Scotland, but because I don't know them and I'm not in the UK, but I would totally tag Amanda. I'd be like, hey, Amanda, challenge, or I wouldn't say that. I'd say you, Albany. But it would be like a predetermined thing. So that'd be super fun. So thank you for giving us some great ideas. I see mental health services. I'm all about that. And we're going to talk about burnout here shortly. And we do need to start a SUNY Library social media challenge, Sarah. So we'll get on that and after this presentation. But one thing I want to talk about is social listening, which is defined as the monitoring of your brand's social media challenges for any customer feedback or direct mentions regarding specific. You can use specific keywords, topics, competitors, industries. Now, this is for kind of social media as a big picture. And so, but you can do it for your library. You can follow the, you can follow a hashtag. So like I have a hashtag Bartle Library, and you can, I believe in some of the platforms, you can follow the mentions of your library. You can also Google your, maybe your library name. So like Drake Library, and then, you know, do the site Twitter and see all the things that it pops up on Twitter. You can also, I think you can go to the next slide, Amanda. Oh yeah, it's the mention stream in Hootsuite. So you can see that's the times that you've been mentioned. It's usually with an @ when that happens. And you can also lurk. So I lurk in the Binghamton University Reddit community, and I've never seen them complain about the library at all, but I did see a conversation a couple, I guess it was like early April, where a student was wanting to know if there was going to be anything done by the university to collect the COVID stories or the experiences that folks had in the past year. And I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm a librarian. I've spoken to my special art collections folks. I'm going to connect you to. And so that lurking actually worked out really well. And we have a little bit of a collaboration with that student. Oh yeah, I'm not sorry either, Carrie. I think it's great. So that's where I do my social listening. There are professional tools that will do this for you, but we're libraries. I don't think any of us has that kind of money, but there are software that is out there.
I did include it in the list in case anyone does have secret money somewhere. I also just mentioned about the lurking. As a social media group, managers group, we decided that lurking was great. So we actually created these Facebook class pages for each of our incoming classes so that they can talk amongst themselves. And we've secretly embedded ourselves in these groups. I believe someone has a mascot account that's in there. I've been invited through the libraries. I really don't post in there unless I want them to know about a certain event, but I do comb through the posts to see if they do mention us at anything. It's not creepy at all.
It says in the chat that it's research, and absolutely.
So the whole point of doing social media, everything I think comes down to assessment and analytics, right? Anything we do has to have a purpose and it's backed up by data. So we have here social media analytics is the process of tracking, collecting, and analyzing data from social networks. Absolutely true. So before you even dive into all the different ways that you can collect things on social media, why is it important to even do it? Well, you want to see what your engagement is. So is your account worthwhile? Who are you reaching? If you're not reaching anyone, then maybe it's not where you should be spending your time. Maybe it's not a worthwhile endeavor, or maybe you need to do better marketing to let people know that you have these accounts. I know here we have social media bookmarks that has all our account information on it that we give out when we table. And we do it when we have a welcome back event, and we give away leisure read materials that are donated from different folks across campus. And we stick those bookmarks in there so they have to know about our accounts. So maybe you need to do better marketing so people know. And then of course, what are you collecting once you decide what platforms you want to use to collect on? You have these free things that come with certain accounts. And I kind of talk about that in the big guide that was provided. If you're on Twitter analytics, I think it's all you need. You don't need anything else. I think Twitter analytics is fine. It gives you impressions, it gives you likes, page clicks, profile clicks from tweets, retweets, so much data that you can use. And you can do it by tweet, or you can look at overall how you're doing. And I choose to focus more on the engagement. Impressions are kind of like those numbers that who has seen this? To me, you can have a really high impression number, but if your engagement is low, you know, the impressions mean nothing. You want people to engage with these things as well as just see them. They, you know, I scroll through my account doesn't mean I actually saw some of the things that are in my news feed. In terms of Instagram, unless you have a business or a creator account, you do not have analytics. So if you have an Instagram account, I recommend now, if you're not going and getting a business account, it's a simple change. You go into your settings. It doesn't mess with anything, but then all of a sudden you'll have these Instagram insights, which provide you with a bunch of different things. And we took kind of screenshots of different analytic things that a couple of us use. So you'll see that. But yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff, and I'll let Megan or whoever wants to talk about how they collect analytics.
Yeah, so you can go to the next slide, Amanda. I used Union Metrics, and I think it was before I realized that there was analytics within the platforms themselves. And it is a freemium, and it will cover Twitter and Instagram. So I use that one, and it gives me some information about best time of day, what types of posts are doing really well, and that will actually change over time. So I've noticed that sometimes it'll say your tweets with text are doing great and not so much the images. And then other times it'll be vice versa, where they say, nope, your picture posts are doing fantastic. So this is another option. I think if I hadn't known, or if I had known about the internal analytics within each of the platforms, that might be where I would have started, but it is here, and it's nice because it's in one spot. So if you're trying to find just a one-stop shop, with the exception of Facebook, because their Facebook analytics is like a whole different beast. Union Metrics could be an option for you.
And here is just what the dashboard looks like for Instagram. If folks were curious about it, you get a lot of different things. This is what a post insight looks like for one post. So you get your likes, any comments, if people have shared things, or if they've saved your post, which is actually really nice to know, and how they came. Were they unique followers? So people that weren't following your account, they might have reached it via hashtag. So these are all really nice things to know, and it helps to decide how you want to continue posting.
So I think burnout is.
Before you start, I just want to give you you got about 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. The WHO defines burnout as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's jobs, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and or reduced professional efficacy. And so I think that many of us have experienced this in the last year, and it is okay. We survived a pandemic, and I don't know that we emphasize that enough. Like, guys, we survived a pandemic. And it's, Amanda, you can go to the next slide. It is totally okay to ask for help. And I think it's important to revisit your goals for social media. So a personal story that I can share, last March, when we all went into lockdown, I had a really hard time feeling like the content that I was creating was authentic and useful. And it just didn't feel, it felt very misaligned from what was going on in the real world. And so I spoke with my supervisor, and she said that it was totally okay to step back a little bit and reduce the number of postings that I was doing in order to try to help my mental health and to recognize that the world was a dumpster fire. So I think it's really important to ask for help, and to you can revisit the goals of that social media. Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I'll just add that for me, like, I'm kind of on a personal note experiencing burnout with social media right now. My team is a little bit as well. So we're all kind of on pause this summer. We'll post things when we get them sent to us, or if something kind of sparks our interest, like a new display came up, we'll be like, oh, let's make a post about that. But we're not actively trying to generate content over the summer. To give us a break, we're not super engaged with over the summer by our students anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. But to echo a little bit of what Megan was just saying, my campus, for instance, shut down the first week of September and went remote for the rest of the fall 2020 semester. And so my team and I had spent countless hours creating COVID safety themed posts that were now mostly useless as they pertain to the building. And so I also needed to immediately pivot and post constantly changing procedures for how we were going to operate for the fall semester. And our students were also burnt out from being virtual so much, and our interaction dropped significantly as soon as we transitioned to remote. So, you know, keeping things like that in mind and giving yourself time to breathe, your students will eventually come back to social media. You'll get those engagements again. And sometimes taking a little bit of a pause can actually be helpful for your social media account, because it's kind of like a collection, right? You need to weed it sometimes to allow books and stuff to grow. So sometimes taking a pause while you're posting can be a good thing.
And I'm just posting in the chat a book about burnout that I've read. I thought it was fantastic. It's not related to social media at all, but it might be helpful in this time.
So to echo what Megan and Sarah said, and basically what's coming up in the chat, we're all burnt out in every way possible. So it's not even just social media. I think the one thing that we kind of have to remember is, if this is an extra role that you took on, be kind to yourself and just bring that up as well, that this is an additional role that I took on. So I can't really do this right now. I need this space. And if you are getting pushback to keep going, that's a harsher conversation you may have to have. But I think the biggest part for me was our library went back in person last summer. We've been open since last fall. So when it was time to start posting again, I really couldn't post that much. I didn't have it in me because I was scared to go back. My colleagues were scared to go back. There was a lot of anxiety. And you could definitely tell in our posts that I had, it was just like, yeah, we're open, but wear your mask and stay far away was basically what it was. I can't fake or front like, oh, this is fun. I can't do that. So the authentic side makes a huge difference in your posts. So if you find that you're really, really struggling and you need to take a pause, definitely listen to your body in that sense. In the chat, I'm going to drop a few links and hashtags of a bunch of just mental health, boundaries, workplace morale. That's definitely been a new topic in our field this past year, especially. So tap into those communities, even just like the hashtag LS Mental Health on Twitter. It will be overwhelming, but it will also be helpful. There's lots of resources from all those sites. So definitely pause when you need to tap out and then contact any of those. Or if you need just extra help additionally, contact like your campus mental health center or an offsite one as well, because anything we've learned this past year, it's really not worth any of our mental health to just drag ourselves through all of the extra work.
And I'll just kind of add, yeah, the burnout thing is very real. We try to build in kind of times where we can slow down our social media, whether that be the summer where we can cut back on posts around holidays or breaks. We cut back on our posts. So we try to give ourselves some time. We also try to plan a week ahead on our scheduling for a lot of things. So there is some breathe room. And then if events or something pop up, we'll add to our posts of things we want to post. I also want to add, because I feel like we didn't mention it, since the pandemic did happen, what do you do when a big world event happens? How does that inform how you're going to post, the tone of your messaging? Is it appropriate to be funny during that time? Do you want to pull posts that, you know, have a bad, would not reflect well for you posting at that time? Like for instance, on January 6th, we had the event at the Capitol that happened. We had posts scheduled for that day. We felt that it was not right to post at all because of, in light of what was happening. So we pulled all our posts for that day and our account went dark. So you have to make those decisions as they come, depending on what's happening in the world and how comfortable you feel with what you're going to post on your account during that time. So just food for thought.
Yeah, man, I just want to jump on that real quick before we get to that breakout. That's also important to pay attention to what your upper admin, like your library director, wants in tone for posts. Like I struggled a lot with posts at the beginning of the year because our director wanted everything, you know, kind of light and like, yay, we're back, because that was kind of the direction from the upper campus. And I was kind of like, but we got to be careful and safe. So, you know, you got to give yourself some leeway when you have that pressure kind of coming at you too.
I think we only have 4 minutes left, so we might have to not do the breakout because I want to make sure people can ask questions if they have them. But again, here's this slide guide that Alessandra put together. So
yes, I just put the link in the chat again in case you didn't have it at the beginning. So yeah, just remember that you have a lot of resources there to access to help you manage your social media accounts.
and all of our contact information and all of our account information as well. So definitely, I would say if you're looking to set up an account or need guidance, I think you can contact any one of us and we'd be happy to help you get that started. So do you have questions for us? Feel free to unmute yourself to ask them or drop them in the chat. If you're playing the home game,
Well, if nobody has any questions, maybe we could brainstorm what the SUNYLA library social media challenge will be.
It's a great idea, Megan.
I'm thinking like a book it challenge a la Pizza Hut from like early or late 1990s. I actually got that t-shirt and I'm super jazzed about it.
they're
I think I
starting
saw
it
a
up
whole bunch
again.
of pins. Yeah, they are starting it up again.
So that might, if that's trending again, that actually would be perfect time to do something like that. That's another thing. Always jump on the trending thing. If you see, like I mentioned, the mannequin challenge earlier, I know Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when they were doing that reunion, if you want to make a video parodying the theme song for that, then is the time to do it. Jump onto what's popular.
Do it quickly. Like you don't want it to go stagnant by the time you get to it.
The moment fades quickly.
Yes.
Hey, you do have a question actually. Any tips on how to get others on board with the importance of branding, consistency, and having policies?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I'm trying to think of like if there's any examples of when a brand imploded because they weren't on brand or they weren't consistent. I think it could get really messy very quickly as like that's a worst case scenario, but I think it's important for your followers to be consistent and to have that branding. Like they know when they see that green, that Binghamton green, that it's a Binghamton post and or the Oneonta red, and it won't throw your followers for a loop if you're just like all over the place. So if that's at least one thing, I think.
I also think to get people on board with policies, just pointing to examples of like when negative comments are happening, or like as Amanda was talking about earlier, when that lewd photograph Snapchat thing happened at her campus, like having a policy so you know how to address those types of things ahead of time is super helpful. So being able to maybe point to those as examples of why you need to have a policy would be helpful.
And then I would also add, there's usually a lot of pushback for social media. A way to approach it is, well, this is a different department now. There wouldn't be a pushback on info-lit policies or collection development policies. You just need them. So this is just something very different. And that's why we need those protocols there in place for it.
Okay, we're here at 4 o'clock. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you to our presenters. They did an amazing job today. There are other social activities coming up later this evening, and at around 4:30, there will be the poster sessions where I will be moderating that as well. And we're also that if you saw the earlier cooking presentation, there will also be a cocktail presentation during that. So if that didn't entice you enough for posters, there's also going to be cocktails. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you later.